Well, good evening. Thank you to the organizers. I actually would like to defend Aleph Bet Yoshua. I love listening to Aleph Bet Yoshua. You can always count on Aleph Bet Yoshua to get it 50% right. And he did this evening, and I think it's absolutely not true that every word that he said should be disagreed with. So let me just begin with the 50% that I think is right. The 50% that I think is right is that I really do agree that debates about what is a Jewish state, debates about what is a Zionist, they're tremendously entertaining for a certain kind of argumentative person, but I don't think that they're of great historical value or philosophical value. I think that he largely got it right. The fact is that we have Herzl's writings, we have Ben-Gurion's writings, we have the Declaration of Independence, we have the United Nations resolution which establishes a Jewish state. We have the basic laws. We know what a Jewish state is. A Jewish state is the state of the Jewish people. A Jewish state is a state that's established in order to give sovereign power, that's legal authority and constitutional abilities and military and economic abilities to the Jewish people that the Jewish people didn't have before. And in many respects, that's a minimalist definition. It's absolutely true that you can be all sorts of different kinds of Zionists. You can be all sorts of kinds of different people who believes in a Jewish state, but a person who believes that the state of the Jewish people, that the Jewish people after 2,000 years of disempowerment, after holocausts and persecutions, after tragedies and sufferings, which were caused, as Ben-Gurion never tired of emphasizing, which were caused by the powerlessness of the Jewish people, that at a certain stage in our history we're able to gather together the alliances necessary and the wisdom necessary and the fortitude and the belief necessary in order to be able to reestablish a constitutional sovereignty for the Jewish people within its land. And that's the Jewish state. That's what the Jewish state is. It isn't anything else. It's not more and not less than that. Now, why do I say that this is only 50% of the truth? The reason that it's only 50% of the truth is because even though the achievement of the Jewish state is precisely what Jews prayed for thousands of years, and it's precisely what Herzl dreamed about, and it's precisely what Ben-Gurion fought for, and I agree with Aleph Bet Yoshua on this point too, that if every one of you were to move to the state of Israel, then every one of you would be more fulfilled as Jews, and we here in Israel would be much better off as well, and the Jewish people would be better off. Right? And that's part of becoming empowered, and becoming empowered as part of a reconstituted sovereignty of the Jewish nation. But what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this picture, although every word of it was true up until this point, what's wrong with this picture is that the constant emphasis on the emptiness, the vacuousness of this this Zionist vision, and the vacuousness of the definition of a Jew, which ultimately depends on being fulfilled simply by physically being here and living your life here. That vacuousness derives strictly and solely from Aleph Bet Yoshua's imparting of a vacuum to these terms. Now, there's an unfair, I think, probably not intentional, but an unfair trick that's being played when you start saying, look, the definition of a Jew is someone whose mother is a Jew. And the definition of a Zionist is nothing more than somebody who, all of these nothing buts. There's something unfair about this because there's a difference, you'll forgive me 12 seconds of philosophy. There's a difference between an ostensive definition where you point to something and you say, here's a definition. That over there, that's a Nat Hoffman. Is that a good definition? It's a perfectly good definition. If you point correctly, then you've identified a Nat Hoffman. But is it fair to say I've defined Anat Hoffman by being able to point to her? No, it's not fair. It's a tragic injustice. Because Anat Hoffman, in addition to being the person I'm pointing to, is also a substantive, material person with visions and dreams and achievements and goals and things that she stands for. There's an actual person there.
Police record.
What? and a police record to be proud of or not to be proud of. And when Aleph Bet Yeshua comes and tells you, what is a Jew? A Jew is a person whose mother is Jewish. Alternatively, a Jew is a person who self-identifies as a Jew. It's not that what he's saying is false. The problem is that he's giving you a definition, like that's not Hoffman. The definition's correct, but it's completely vacuous. Why? Because he's evacuated of all substance and meaning. Now, in addition to the ostensive definition, to being able to point to who a Jew is, there's also the substantive, the material. Now, I'd like to quote from a document that's near and dear to my heart, as it is to Aleph Bet Yeshua's, the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence, by the way, it's interesting that Aleph Bet Yeshua says everybody opposed Zionism. He's right, maybe, if he's talking about the year 1900. But when the Israeli Declaration of Independence was written, it was signed by every Jewish political movement in the land of Israel. It was signed by the so-called anti-Zionist Communist Party, and it was signed by the so-called anti-Zionist Agudat Israel, the ultra-Orthodox, and it was signed by everybody in between. And not only that, but it was supported by all of those factions outside of the land of Israel as well, in America and in the rest of the world. The Israeli Declaration of Independence actually represents the overwhelming, well over 90%, the overwhelming majority of the views of the Jewish people at the time that it was signed. And interestingly, this document does not talk about a vacuous Jewish people and a vacuous Zionism and a vacuous Jewish state, although it talks about the Jewish state 10 different times. It opens with the following sentences. The land of Israel was the birthplace of the Jewish people. Here, their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Notice that Ben-Gurion, writing these words and then having it approved by the National Assembly, and then by all of the Jewish political movements in the land of Israel, representing the entire Jewish people as they believed they were doing, that they actually all believe the following thing, that there is such a thing as a spiritual identity of the Jewish people, a religious identity of the Jewish people, a political identity of the Jewish people that was actually shaped. There actually is a substance, all these people say, and they go on. Here they, the Jewish people, first attained statehood, creating cultural values of national and universal significance. The Declaration of Independence doesn't say, no, we're a vacuum, you can put absolutely anything you want into it. We created specific values, specific cultural values of national significance and of universal significance, and giving the world the eternal book of books, the Tanakh. You can't, in the eyes of the founders of the State of Israel, from the communists to Agudat Israel, you can't go 3 sentences in talking about what the Jewish state is in the land of Israel. You can't go 3 sentences without mentioning the Tanakh. Why can't you go 3 sentences without mentioning the Tanakh? Because every one of those people knew very well, and said so, that if it had not been for the Tanakh, there would never have been a Jewish people, there never would have been a Zionist movement, and there never would have been a state of Israel. Now, I'm not saying that you have to adopt any particular view precisely of what it is that the values of the Tanakh are. This is a compromise document. But you'll notice that this compromise document is adamant in rejecting Aleph Bet Yeshua's view that anything goes. What we're arguing about when we're arguing about what is the substance of the Jewish people and what is the substance of the Jewish state is we're arguing, and what is the substance of the Tanakh? What we're arguing about is the material definition, the substantive definition of what it is that we as Jews aspire to. A few months ago, I published a book that wasn't mentioned. I appear to have sent the wrong CV. It's called The Philosophy of Hebrew Scripture. And in this book, I make the following argument. I make the argument that the Tanakh, that the Hebrew Bible, in fact presents a substantive, identifiable, philosophical structure that was intended by the Hebrew prophets, by the Jewish prophets, not just for the Jews, but to contribute, just as it says here in the Declaration of Independence, to contribute certain values to all of humanity and to the whole world. Now, I don't believe that there's a single, and when I say I don't believe, I mean, I know this is a fact. There was not one of the Zionist founding fathers, not Herzl, not Ben-Gurion, not Jabotinsky, not Katznelson, not Tabenkin, certainly not Ahad Am, none of the founding fathers of the Zionist movement believed something different from what it says here in the Declaration of Independence, and roughly plus minus the claim that I made in this book. They all believed that the substance of the Jewish people derives from the Tanakh, that that's the place from which the Jewish people springs, and they all believed that that's also, in a very significant sense, the place towards which we all need to go. What precisely is the content of that? That, of course, is a big argument. But it doesn't mean that it's vacuous. It doesn't mean that it's anything goes. It means that all of us, if we want to actually know the answers, we need to go back to the Tanakh and we need to ask, what is it that made it worthwhile for Herzl and Ben-Gurion and the rest of the founding fathers and mothers of this nation to take this document, breathe new life into it, ingather the exiles as predicted by it into the land designated by it, and reconstitute the sovereignty that had been dreamed of by the people who wrote the Tanakh. When we know the answer to that, then we'll have a good proposal for what it is to be in a Jewish state. Thank you.